To stop the leakage, you'll need an object without any holes.
If the Stanley Parable and Subnautica got together and had a baby, and then that baby was shot up into space, I'm pretty sure it would grow up to turn into Breathedge. Off the bat, Breathedge lets you know that it's going to be a comedy. The intro credits are funny, making very tongue-in-cheek references to the beginning of the movie. You're brought in chains up to a couple of mobster droids who begin to interrogate you about your past endeavors. At this point, you can choose to lie or get beat, but ultimately you end up recounting your harrowing tale of being aboard either a freighter or space hearse. I'm not exactly sure given the corpses on board. But either way, some kind of catastrophe happens. The ship crashes, similar to Subnautica actually. And when you come to, you are left to your own devices to survive. Settings-wise, Breathedge does have a fair amount of options when it comes to your graphics settings, with texture quality, anti-aliasing, post-processing, all with a variety of different settings to fit your specific device. And I'm very pleased to announce that it does in fact have controller settings. Steam controllers, PlayStation 4, Xbox, it's all here. Some of my favorite video games have been survival games. I have countless hours in Ark, Rust, Subnautica, something about crafting, resource gathering, survival bars. They've always just scratched that kind of primal itch of hunting and gathering for me. This game took that, mixed it with a decent amount of comedy. So the gameplay loop, I had a pretty good feeling once I figured out what this game was about, was going to be my cup of tea, my alley. Breathedge does a decent job of all three of those things. Food and water were not overbearing. I had to eat and drink, but it never felt like a chore to do so. Crafting and resource gathering, also by the same token, were not extremely difficult, although there was a mission to collect a specific resource that I found a little challenging. The only one that really didn't feel particularly great was oxygen. The timer runs out so quickly that while you're exploring, you constantly have to go back to the main ship just to refill your oxygen supply. But overall, it was still an enjoyable experience. The first 10 minutes or so was what I would call a tutorial. I don't know that it necessarily fit that mold in this case. Yes, it did introduce you to the basics, the resource gathering, the crafting, needing oxygen, all of that kind of stuff. But it was never really hand-holdy. It never said, go exactly here and do this exact thing. Go here, get these resources. It just kind of told you, you need to craft this. And it was kind of up to you to go through the UI elements to figure out exactly what materials you needed so that you could go effectively craft that thing. I really liked this. I think it made the tutorial more engaging. It felt less... The game thought I was smart enough to figure it out, and I appreciate that. By the time you get done with the tutorial, and which finishes off with building a developer crap tool to slow your progress, by the time you've done this, you know the main game loop, and you know how to gather your materials, watch your vital bars, craft materials, and progress your character to be stronger than he was to start. Let's talk about the graphics and the art style of Breathedge. First off, the art style. This game is nearly 5 years old now. However, when you look at it, the art style fits perfectly. It's just a step above cartoonish, almost kind of like a painting style. The album or the art cover, the box cover, is very similar to the actual graphics style of the game. Similar to how Breath of the Wild will always look kind of timeless in its cel-shaded appearance, I really do think Breathedge will hold up for a long time with its art style backing that up. The rest of the game looks very good as well. You don't have some of the modern conveniences like DLSS or other upscaling techniques, but it's really not necessary. The game runs very smoothly, at least on my hardware. Has a lot of really nice lighting effects, distant lighting of the radioactive core of your spaceship, some other space lighting coming through, all look very good. There's some nice smoke effects, frozen liquids that have a translucence to them, which is really, really cool. And the character models, again, fitting in that art style, all look really, really well. From your immortal chicken to the random dead hamster that you may find along the way. Graphics were pleasing to look at and never took me out of the game and only reinforced it. Sound, by the same token, also sounded really good. If we think about the sound effects, there's lots of clanking, tearing, peeing noises, suffocation noises as you run out of air. All of these sound effects I thought sounded fantastic. Take a listen. The music is also, I thought, perfect for this game. When you first start off in your ship, you get some kind of obnoxious Eastern European music. Thankfully, you can either change the station or turn it off altogether, which I opted to do. But once you get out into space and you're traversing the empty void around your ship, the music is ethereal and gives you that grandiose size and scale that space demands. As you run out of breath, the music gets more tense and you feel the urgency to get back to the ship. Overall, the sound in this game was awesome. Breathedge does a number of things specifically well. Chief among them is the story kept me engaged. It was humorous, it was funny, and it tied in well with the gameplay loop that they set me into. I would get messages randomly from NPCs or my AI robot talking to me about how to proceed next or what I may have found. All of it very nice, very, very good. The gameplay loop, like I said, very engaging for me. If you like survival games, if you like hunting for a specific element so that you can take it back to a crafting table and craft it, at the same time as managing your vitals, your food, your water, your oxygen, increasing those, making them better over time, very satisfying gameplay loop. And lastly, the game looks and sounds great. The graphics, for being 5 years old, do not feel like a last-gen title. It feels really good to pick up and play, good to look at, good to listen to with headphones is how I did it. And the additional controller support is very much appreciated. This is one that I can stream to my G Cloud back there while laying in bed and make progress that way. I'm not tied to the computer as I don't really like to be. I still wouldn't call Breathedge a perfect game though. It does have some drawbacks. I think the oxygen length could and should be a little bit longer. It felt like half of the time that I spent out in space was spent traveling just to where I wanted to go, only to have to turn around and head back to my oxygen safety within 20 to 30 seconds. So a little bit longer I don't think would have taken away from the challenge, but would have made it a little bit more enjoyable to explore the area around me. The tutorial area, while I like that it didn't hold my hand, also made it a little bit too hard to find some of those initial starting resources. I must have broken open a number of different containers just trying to find one piece of rubber. It probably took almost a third of my game time to finish up the tutorial just because of that. I ended up finding my own mission of exploration and objective when I got bored of that. So eventually I did find it, and the game really does appear to just set you off on your own at that point, which I do like. But that's my biggest complaints off the bat. The verdict then. Does Breathedge get to stick around on my PC? Am I going to come back to it? Well, if I do come back to it, it's going to be a fresh start because, lo and behold, it does not have an autosave feature. Found that out at the very end of my hour, but I do think I'm going to leave it installed. I think I'm going to give it another go and see if I can get a little bit further. I'm intrigued enough about the story of the man, where he ended up. Obviously, he survives if he's getting interrogated by gangster robots. But exactly how and what he found along the way, that intrigues me. So we're going to stick around and we're going to find out.
The electrical stimulation is complete. Having traced your brain's activity while you were working, your brain was stimulated with small electrical charges to improve your engineering skills. Judging by the result, it didn't work and caused a number of hallucinations. However, it was entertaining. You still can't get past the radiation, but I will mark the coordinates of the rescuers for useless motivation.